The fluorescent lights in the hospital corridor flickered as Maya rushed down the hallway, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. It was 2 in the morning, and she'd been on her feet for nearly 12 hours straight. Her fellow nurse had called in sick, which meant Maya was covering double duty on the night shift. Again. She rubbed her tired eyes and checked her phone one more time. Room 847. A patient needed his vitals checked. Simple enough. She'd done this 1,000 times before, but tonight exhaustion was playing tricks on her mind. The numbers on the doors seemed to blur together as she walked past them. Maya stopped in front of what she thought was the right room and pushed the door open quietly. The room was dark except for the soft glow of medical monitors casting blue shadows on the walls. She could make out the silhouette of someone lying in the bed perfectly still. She approached the bed carefully, not wanting to startle the patient if he was sleeping. As she reached for the blood pressure cuff hanging on the wall, a hand suddenly shot out and grabbed her wrist. Maya's heart jumped into her throat. The grip wasn't violent, but it was firm and desperate. Finally, a man's voice whispered in the darkness. It was weak, hoarse, but there was an urgency in it that made her freeze. Finally, someone I can trust. Maya tried to pull her hand back gently. "Sir, I think you're confused." "I'm just here to check your vitals. Let me turn on the light and—" "No." The word came out sharp, almost panicked. "Don't turn on the light, please, just listen to me." There was something in his voice that made Maya pause. She'd been a nurse for 5 years now, and she'd learned to recognize genuine fear when she heard it. This man wasn't confused or delirious. He was terrified. "What's wrong?" she asked softly, her professional instincts kicking in. "Are you in pain? Should I call your doctor?" The man's grip on her wrist loosened slightly, but he didn't let go. "The doctors won't listen. Nobody listens. They all think I'm paranoid, that the medication is making me imagine things. But I'm not crazy. I know what's happening to me." Maya's mind raced. Was this patient having a psychological episode? Should she call for backup? But something in her gut told her to wait, to listen. "What do you think is happening?" she asked, keeping her voice calm and steady. The man was quiet for a moment, and Maya could hear his labored breathing in the darkness. When he finally spoke again, his words sent a chill down her spine. "My brother is trying to kill me." Maya felt her mouth go dry. "Sir, that's a very serious accusation. If you're in danger, we need to call security right now, get the police involved." No, you don't understand." His voice cracked with frustration. He's doing it slowly. "Poisoning me." Making it look like a natural illness. He's been at it for months now, and everyone just thinks I'm sick with some mystery disease. The doctors keep running tests, but they're not looking for the right things. Because my brother is friends with one of them, they're working together. Maya's nursing training told her this could be paranoid delusions, but there was a clarity in the man's voice that gave her pause. He didn't sound confused or irrational. He sounded like someone who'd been screaming into a void and was desperate for anyone to hear him. "Why would your brother want to hurt you?" she asked carefully. "The company," he said simply. "It's always been about the company. 6 months ago, I found out he'd been stealing money. A lot of money. I confronted him, told him I was going to expose everything and remove him from the board. 2 weeks later, I got sick, really sick, and he's been playing the concerned brother ever since, visiting me every day, bringing me special drinks that are supposed to help me feel better. But I only get worse after he visits." Maya felt her professional skepticism warring with a growing sense of unease. This sounded like something out of a crime show, not real life, but the desperation in this man's voice felt genuine. "If you really believe this, you need to talk to the hospital administration, or the police, or—" "I have evidence," he interrupted. "I've been documenting everything for weeks, secretly recording conversations, taking pictures of my medication, tracking my symptoms. It's all on a USB drive, but I need someone on the outside to see it, someone who's not already in my brother's pocket." He pressed something small and hard into Maya's palm. She could feel the shape of a USB drive in her hand. "Please," he whispered. "You're my only hope. Everyone thinks I'm just a paranoid sick man, but I'm running out of time. I can feel myself getting weaker every day." Just then, Maya heard footsteps in the hallway outside. A voice called out, "Maya? Are you in here?" "We need you in 847, room 847. Maya's blood ran cold. If they needed her in 847, that meant she wasn't in 847. She looked around the dark room with new eyes, trying to read the room number on the wall, but it was too dark to see clearly. I have to go, she whispered to the man, slipping the USB drive into her pocket.
I'll come back.
I promise. She quickly backed toward the door, her heart pounding. As she stepped into the bright corridor, she turned to look at the room number on the door. Room 874. She'd been in the wrong room the entire time. The other nurse, Rachel, was standing a few doors down, looking impatient. There you are. Mrs. Patterson in 847 is asking for pain medication. Where were you? Sorry, Maya mumbled, her mind still reeling. I got turned around. These night shifts are killing me. She dealt with Mrs. Patterson quickly, but her mind was elsewhere. As soon as she had a free moment, she pulled out her phone and looked at the door of room 874 from a distance. There was a small sign next to it that she hadn't noticed before. 5P Wing. Restricted access. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed the room number into her phone's search bar along with the hospital name. The first result that came up made her stomach drop. Alexander Chen, CEO of Chen Pharmaceuticals, being treated for mysterious illness at St. Catherine's Medical Center. The article was from 2 weeks ago. It talked about how the 32-year-old billionaire had been hospitalized with symptoms that had doctors baffled. His younger brother, Daniel Chen, had taken over as temporary CEO and was reportedly at his bedside every day. Maya stared at the photo of Alexander Chen on her phone screen. Even in the professional headshot, she could see the same sharp intelligence that had been in those desperate eyes in the dark room. She touched the USB drive in her pocket. Her logical mind told her this was crazy, that she should just return it and forget this ever happened. She'd walked into the wrong room, gotten caught up in a sick man's paranoid fantasy, and now she needed to step back and let the real doctors handle it. But something deeper, some instinct she couldn't quite name, told her that the man in room 874 had been telling the truth. And if he was, if someone really was trying to kill him right here in this hospital, then she might be the only person who could help him. Maya took a deep breath and slipped her phone back into her pocket. Her shift would be over in 4 hours. Then she'd go home, look at what was on that USB drive, and decide what to do next. She had no idea that this single wrong turn, this one case of mistaken room numbers on an exhausting night shift, was about to turn her entire world upside down. Maya barely slept that morning after her shift ended. She sat at her kitchen table staring at the USB drive like it might explode at any moment. The smart thing to do would be to take it back to the hospital, hand it to security, and forget this whole mess. But every time she reached for her keys to do exactly that, she remembered the desperation in Alexander Chen's voice. Finally, around noon, she plugged the drive into her laptop. Her hands were shaking slightly as she clicked on the first folder. What she found made her forget all about sleep. The drive was meticulously organized. There were folders labeled by date going back 6 months. Video files, audio recordings, photographs, and detailed written notes. Alexander Chen hadn't just been documenting his suspicions. He'd been conducting his own investigation from his hospital bed. Maya clicked on a file labeled Timeline. It opened to a document that read like something out of a detective novel. 6 months ago, Alexander had discovered that his brother Daniel had been embezzling money from Chen Pharmaceuticals. Not small amounts either. Over $5 million had been siphoned off through fake vendor accounts and ghost employees. When Maya read the next part, her blood ran cold. According to Alexander's notes, he'd confronted Daniel in his office on March 15th. He'd given his brother 2 choices: resign quietly and pay back the money or face criminal charges. Daniel had begged for mercy, promised to make things right, asked for just a little more time. Alexander had given him 1 week to come up with a plan. 3 days later, Alexander started feeling sick. At first, it was just fatigue and mild nausea. He'd blamed it on stress. But within 2 weeks, he was so ill that he couldn't get out of bed. His personal doctor had admitted him to St. Catherine's Medical Center, and the tests began. Dozens of them. Blood work, scans, biopsies. Everything came back inconclusive. Maya clicked on another folder labeled Symptoms Log. Alexander had been recording every single symptom he experienced, complete with timestamps. The pattern was chilling. Every time Daniel visited him in the evening, usually around 7 p.m., Alexander would feel slightly better at first. But by the next morning, his symptoms would be significantly worse. Hair loss, nausea, numbness in his extremities, confusion, muscle weakness. Maya paused. Those symptoms tickled something in the back of her mind from her nursing training. She opened a new browser tab and started searching. Heavy metal poisoning. The symptoms matched perfectly. She went back to the USB drive and found a folder labeled The Thermos. Inside were dozens of photos, all taken from slightly different angles. They showed Daniel entering Alexander's hospital room, carrying a distinctive green thermos. In every photo, Daniel was holding it carefully, almost protectively. One video file caught Maya's attention. The timestamp showed it was from 10 days ago. She clicked play and watched grainy security footage that Alexander must have somehow obtained. It showed Daniel in a parking garage standing next to a silver car. After a few seconds, another man approached. Maya's stomach twisted when she recognized him. Dr. Harrison, one of the senior physicians at St. Catherine's. The same doctor who was overseeing Alexander's case. The video had no audio, but the interaction was clear. Daniel handed Dr. Harrison a large envelope. They talked for a few minutes, both men looking around nervously. Then they shook hands and went their separate ways. Maya sat back in her chair, her mind racing. This was bad. This was really, really bad. If what she was seeing was real, then a man was being slowly murdered in her hospital and one of the doctors was involved. But the evidence wasn't enough, was it? A video of two men meeting in a parking garage wasn't proof of murder. The symptom logs could be explained away as the ramblings of a sick, medicated patient. Even the embezzlement claims would need proper investigation. What Maya needed was concrete proof. And suddenly, she knew exactly what that proof would be. The green thermos. Over the next 3 days, Maya volunteered for every shift she could get near the VIP wing. She needed to learn the routines, the schedules, the patterns. She became friendly with Sophie, the nurse who was regularly assigned to Alexander's room. Sophie was nice enough, though she seemed a bit too eager to follow Dr. Harrison's instructions without question. "How's Mr. Chen doing?" Maya asked casually one afternoon, standing at the nurse's station. Sophie sighed. "Poor guy. Some days he seems a bit better, and other days he's so weak he can barely speak. His brother is devoted, though. Comes every single evening without fail. Brings him this special health tonic that he swears helps." "Health tonic?" Maya kept her voice neutral. "Yeah, it's in this green thermos. Daniel says it's some traditional Chinese medicine recipe from their grandmother. Dr. Harrison approved it. Said it couldn't hurt." Sophie shrugged. "I've seen stranger things. Families always want to feel like they're helping somehow." Maya nodded, pretending to be interested in her paperwork. "Does security ever check what visitors bring in?" "Not for VIP patients, especially not family members. Besides, Daniel Chen practically owns half the board of directors. Nobody's going to question him." That night, Maya couldn't stop thinking about the thermos. She needed to get her hands on it, get the contents tested, but how? Daniel visited every evening. The guards outside Alexander's room were always present, and security cameras covered every angle of the VIP wing. On her 4th day of careful observation, Maya noticed something. There was a 15-minute window during shift change, right around 7:30 p.m., when the hallway was chaotic. Nurses rushing to update each other on patient conditions, doctors making final rounds, visitors being ushered out of regular rooms. For those 15 minutes, attention was divided. Maya waited until Daniel had been in Alexander's room for about 20 minutes. She'd timed it carefully over the past few days. He usually stayed for 30 to 45 minutes. She had to move fast. She grabbed a medical supply cart and pushed it down the hallway, her heart hammering so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. The guards barely glanced at her. Just another nurse doing her job. As she passed Alexander's room, she heard raised voices inside. Daniel was arguing with his brother about something. Perfect. Conflict meant distraction. Maya kept walking until she reached the supply closet at the end of the hall. She'd hidden something there earlier during her lunch break. A green thermos identical to Daniel's. She'd spent 2 hours online finding the exact model, then rushed to 3 different stores before she found it. Now came the hard part. Maya waited, watching the clock on the wall. 7:28, 7:29. At exactly 7:30, the shift change chaos began. 2 nurses hurried past, deep in conversation about a patient in the cardiac unit. A doctor's pager went off, and he rushed toward the elevator. The guards outside Alexander's room were watching something on one of their phones, both of them leaning in to see the screen. Maya took a deep breath and pressed the emergency call button for the room directly across from Alexander's. The alarm started blaring, and suddenly everyone was moving. The guards looked up, confused. Nurses came running. In the chaos, Maya slipped into Alexander's room. Daniel was standing by the window, his back to the door, phone pressed to his ear. Alexander was in the bed, eyes closed, but Maya could tell he was awake by the tension in his jaw. The green thermos sat on the bedside table exactly where she'd hoped it would be. Maya moved fast. She grabbed the thermos, her hands shaking, and swapped it with the identical one from her pocket. The whole exchange took maybe 5 seconds. She turned to leave and found herself face to face with Daniel Chen. Time seemed to stop. His eyes moved from her face to the thermos in her hand, to the identical one now sitting on the table. For one horrible moment, Maya was sure he'd seen everything, sure that she was caught, sure that whatever was happening to Alexander was about to happen to her. But then Daniel's phone buzzed, distracting him. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and pushed past Maya without a word, hurrying out into the hallway. Maya's knees nearly gave out from relief. She looked at Alexander, and their eyes met for just a second. He gave her the smallest nod. He'd seen what she'd done. He understood. Maya walked out of the room on shaking legs, the thermos hidden under a blanket on her supply cart. She made it to the staff bathroom before her hands started trembling so badly she had to grip the sink to steady herself. She had it. She had the evidence. Now she just needed to figure out what to do with it before Daniel realized what had happened. And based on the cold look in his eyes when they'd made eye contact in that room, Maya was pretty sure she didn't have much time. Maya sat in her car in the hospital parking lot, the green thermos on the passenger seat next to her. Her shift had ended an hour ago, but she couldn't bring herself to drive away. What was she supposed to do now? Take this to the police? They'd ask how she got it. She'd have to admit she stole it from a patient's room. Even if the contents were poisonous, she could lose her nursing license. She could face criminal charges. But if she did nothing, Alexander Chen would die. It was that simple. Her phone buzzed. A text from her friend Kevin, who worked as a lab technician at an independent clinic across town. They'd gone to school together, and he owed her a favor from when she'd covered his shift last Christmas. "Hey, you still up for coffee this week?" His text read. Maya stared at the message, then at the thermos. She typed quickly. "Actually, I need your help with something. Can you meet me now? It's important." 20 minutes later, they were sitting in a coffee shop far from the hospital. Kevin looked concerned as Maya explained the situation, leaving out some of the more illegal details of how she'd obtained the thermos. "You want me to test this without any official paperwork?" Kevin asked, keeping his voice low. "Maya, if this is what you think it is, we're talking about a crime scene, evidence, chain of custody matters." "I know," Maya said, wrapping her hands around her untouched coffee cup. "But I need to know for sure before I go to anyone official. If I'm wrong, if this is just some harmless health drink, then I've stolen property and invaded a patient's privacy for nothing. But if I'm right..." Kevin was quiet for a moment, studying her face. "You really believe this guy is being poisoned?" "I do," Maya said simply. "I can't explain why, but I do." Kevin sighed and reached for the thermos. "Give me until tomorrow morning. I'll run a full toxicology screen. But Maya, if this comes back positive for something serious, you need to go straight to the police. Promise me?" "I promise," Maya said, though she wasn't entirely sure it was a promise she could keep. The next morning, Maya's phone rang at 6 a.m. It was Kevin, and his voice was shaking. "Maya, where did you get this?" She sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "What did you find?" "Thallium. High concentrations of thallium sulfate mixed into what looks like some kind of herbal tea blend. Maya, this stuff is deadly. Whoever's been drinking this has been ingesting poison for weeks, maybe months." Maya felt her blood run cold. Thallium. She remembered learning about it in nursing school. It was tasteless, odorless, and mimicked the symptoms of a dozen other illnesses. It was the perfect murder weapon. How long would someone survive if they kept drinking this? She asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Depends on the dosage and frequency, but at these levels, if someone's been consuming this regularly for 6 months, I'm surprised they're still alive. Their organs must be shutting down. "Maya, you need to call the police right now." "I will," she said. "Thank you, Kevin, and please keep this quiet until I figure out the right way to handle it." After hanging up, Maya sat on the edge of her bed, trying to think clearly. She had proof now, real scientific proof that Alexander was being poisoned. But she still had a problem. If she went to the police, Daniel would know immediately. He'd have time to cover his tracks, maybe even to finish what he'd started with Alexander before anyone could stop him. She needed to be smart about this. She needed backup. Maya spent the morning making copies of everything. The lab results, the files from Alexander's USB drive, her own notes documenting Daniel's visits. She saved copies to 3 different cloud storage accounts, emailed one to herself, and put the original lab report in an envelope addressed to a lawyer she'd found online who specialized in medical malpractice. Then she made a decision that she knew was risky, maybe even stupid, but felt necessary. She needed to tell Alexander what she'd found. He deserved to know that someone finally believed him, that she had proof. And she needed to warn him that things were about to get very dangerous very quickly. Getting into his room during the day was easier than she'd expected. The guards were used to seeing her in the VIP wing by now. She waited until Sophie took her lunch break, then slipped inside. Alexander was awake, though he looked worse than he had a few days ago. His skin had a grayish tint, and there were dark circles under his eyes. When he saw her, a flicker of hope crossed his face. "You came back," he whispered. His voice was weaker than before. "I tested what was in the thermos," Maya said quietly, moving closer to the bed. "You were right about everything. It's thallium poisoning. I have the lab results." Alexander closed his eyes, and for a moment Maya thought he might cry. "Thank God," he breathed. "Thank God someone finally believes me." "I'm going to the police today," Maya continued. "But I need you to be careful. Once I do this, your brother's going to know that someone's onto him. He might try something desperate." "He already knows something is wrong," Alexander said, opening his eyes. He noticed the thermos was moved yesterday. "He's been asking questions, getting paranoid. Security is reviewing footage from that night." Maya's heart sank. "How much time do I have?" "Not much. Maybe a day, maybe less. He's smart, Maya, and he's dangerous. When he realizes you're the one who took it, he won't just let you go to the police." As if on cue, Maya's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Parking garage, level 3, come alone. You know who this is." Maya showed the message to Alexander. His face went pale. "Don't go," he said urgently. "It's a trap. Call the police right now from here, where there are witnesses." But Maya was already thinking. If she called the police from Alexander's room, Daniel would know immediately that they were working together. He'd have time to spin a story, to claim that Alexander was delusional and that Maya had been manipulated by a paranoid patient. With Daniel's money and influence, he could tie this up in legal complications for months. Alexander didn't have months. "I'm going to meet him," Maya said, "but I'm not going alone." She pulled up her phone and started a video recording, setting it to automatically upload to her cloud storage in real time. Then she called Kevin. "Remember that lawyer I mentioned? I'm texting you her contact information right now. If you don't hear from me in 1 hour, send her everything. The lab results, the recordings, all of it. Tell her to go to the police immediately." "Maya, what are you doing?" "Something probably stupid," she admitted. "But someone needs to stand up to this guy, and right now I'm the only one who can." 20 minutes later, Maya stepped out of the elevator on the 3rd level of the parking garage. It was dim and nearly empty at this time of day. Her footsteps echoed on the concrete as she walked toward the center of the level, where a figure stood waiting. Daniel Chen looked different than he did in the photos she'd seen online. In person, he was smaller, less intimidating. Just a man in an expensive suit with tired eyes and a cold smile. "Nurse Maya," he said, his voice eerily calm. "I've been wanting to meet you properly." "I know what you've been doing," Maya said, keeping her distance. Her phone was in her jacket pocket, still recording. "I have proof. Lab results showing thallium in that drink you've been giving your brother. I have copies everywhere. If anything happens to me, it all goes public." Daniel's smile didn't waver. "That's quite an accusation. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in right now? Breaking into a patient's room, stealing personal property, making wild claims about attempted murder. I could have you arrested right now. I could destroy your career with one phone call." "Then why didn't you?" Maya challenged. "Why am I here instead of talking to security?" "Because I'm not unreasonable," Daniel said, taking a step closer. 2 men in dark suits emerged from behind a pillar. They didn't say anything, just stood there watching. Maya's mouth went dry. "I'm willing to make you a very generous offer," Daniel continued. $500,000 cash transferred to any account you want. All you have to do is give me the lab results, delete whatever copies you made, and leave town. Start over somewhere new. Forget you ever met my brother." Maya's hands were shaking, but she kept her voice steady. "And if I say no?" Daniel's smile finally faded. "Then I think you'll find that bad things happen to people who interfere in family business. Your mother lives alone, doesn't she? In that little house on Maple Street? It would be terrible if something happened to her while you were busy playing hero." The threat was clear, and Maya felt ice run through her veins. But she'd prepared for this. She'd known Daniel would try to either buy her or scare her into silence. "You're too late," she said. "I already uploaded everything before I came here. This conversation is being recorded right now and automatically saved to a secure cloud account. If anything happens to me or my mother, or if Alexander dies, it all goes to the police, the media, and every lawyer I could find. You can't stop it now." For the first time, Daniel's composed mask cracked. His eyes widened, then narrowed with rage. "You stupid, stupid woman. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Maya backed toward the elevator, her heart pounding. "I've done the right thing. That's what I've done." Daniel moved toward her, but Maya was faster. She ran for the elevator and jabbed the button repeatedly. The doors opened just as Daniel reached her. She jumped inside and hit the close button. The last thing she saw before the doors shut was Daniel's face twisted with fury as he shouted something at the men in suits. Maya's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone as the elevator descended. She'd done it. She'd confronted him and lived to tell about it. But now the real danger was just beginning. Maya didn't go home that night. She couldn't. Instead, she drove straight to her mother's house and practically dragged her confused parent into the car, barely stopping to explain. They checked into a small hotel on the other side of the city, paying in cash and using a fake name. Maya knew it probably wouldn't stop someone like Daniel if he really wanted to find them, but it bought her time to think. Her mother sat on one of the hotel beds, wrapped in a blanket, watching Maya pace back and forth across the small room. "Sweetheart, you need to slow down and explain this to me again," her mother said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Why are we hiding in a hotel? What's going on?" Maya stopped pacing and sat down heavily on the other bed. She told her mother everything. The wrong room, Alexander's desperate plea, the USB drive, the poisoned thermos, the confrontation in the parking garage, all of it. When she finished, her mother was quiet for a long moment. "You did the right thing," her mother finally said. "But now you need to go to the police. Tonight. Not tomorrow, not after you've had time to think. Right now." "I know," Maya said, rubbing her tired eyes. "I just needed to make sure you were safe first." She pulled out her phone and dialed the non-emergency police number. But before anyone could answer, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was Sophie from the hospital, and she sounded panicked. "Maya!" "Oh God, Maya, something terrible is happening. You need to get here right now." Maya's blood went cold. "What's wrong? What happened?" "It's Mr. Chen, Alexander Chen. They're saying he's coding." His heart stopped. "They're doing CPR right now, and Dr. Harrison is saying something about an allergic reaction to medication. Daniel is here and he's demanding they stop resuscitation, saying his brother has a DNR order, but I've never seen any DNR in his chart." "Maya, something isn't right. This feels wrong." Maya was already grabbing her jacket. "Don't let them stop CPR, I'm coming. And Sophie, if you trust me at all, don't leave that room. Stay with Alexander and don't let anyone be alone with him." She hung up and looked at her mother. "Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. I'll be back as soon as I can." "Maya, wait," her mother started, but Maya was already out the door. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Maya's mind raced faster than her car. Daniel was making his move. He knew she had evidence, knew that time was running out, so he was trying to finish what he'd started. Maybe he'd bribed someone to give Alexander a lethal dose of something. Maybe Dr. Harrison was helping him. Either way, Alexander was dying right now, and Maya was the only person who knew the truth. She abandoned her car in a no-parking zone outside the emergency entrance and ran through the hospital corridors. Her badge got her through security, though several people called after her telling her to slow down. She ignored them all. When she burst into Alexander's room, it was chaos. 2 doctors and 3 nurses were working frantically. The heart monitor showed a flat line, then a spike, then another flat line. Someone was doing chest compressions. Someone else was preparing an injection. Dr. Harrison stood to the side, looking grave and professional. Daniel was next to him, playing the part of the devastated brother perfectly, his face a mask of anguish. "Stop," Maya shouted, pushing into the room. "Stop everything right now." Everyone turned to look at her like she'd lost her mind. Dr. Harrison's expression darkened. "Nurse Maya, you're not even on duty. You need to leave this room immediately." "He's being poisoned," Maya said, loud enough that everyone in the room could hear. "Alexander Chen has been systematically poisoned with thallium for the past 6 months. I have lab results proving it. Whatever's happening to him right now isn't natural. Someone in this room is trying to kill him." The room went silent except for the frantic beeping of the monitors. One of the other doctors, Dr. Patel, looked at Maya with wide eyes. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" Maya pulled out her phone and held it up. "I have lab results from an independent clinic showing high levels of thallium in a drink his brother has been bringing him every day. I have 6 months of documented evidence that Alexander collected himself, and I have video of Dr. Harrison meeting with Daniel Chen in a parking garage and accepting what appears to be payment." Dr. Harrison's face went pale, then red with anger. "This is absurd. Security! Get this woman out of here!" But Dr. Patel held up a hand. "Wait, thallium poisoning would explain the symptoms. The hair loss, the neuropathy, the mysterious illness that we couldn't diagnose." She turned to the other nurses. "Get me a collation kit now, and someone call the police." "You can't be serious," Dr. Harrison sputtered. "This woman has clearly lost her mind. She's a disgruntled employee making wild accusations." "Then you won't mind if we test Mr. Chen's blood for heavy metals," Dr. Patel said coldly. "And you won't mind explaining that parking garage meeting to the police when they arrive." Daniel had been quiet during this exchange, but now he moved toward the door. "This is ridiculous. I'm calling my lawyer." "Nobody leaves this room," Sophie said, stepping in front of the door. She was small, but her voice was firm. "Not until the police get here." Maya watched as Dr. Patel took over Alexander's care, barking orders to the other medical staff. They started chelation therapy, medicine designed to bind to heavy metals and remove them from the body. It might be too late, but it was Alexander's only chance. The police arrived within minutes. Maya handed over her phone, showing them the recordings, the lab results, the evidence from Alexander's USB drive. She watched as Dr. Harrison tried to explain away the parking garage meeting, his story getting more convoluted with every sentence. She watched as Daniel's lawyer face crumbled when he realized there was no way to talk his way out of this. 2 officers escorted Dr. Harrison out of the room in handcuffs. Another 2 did the same with Daniel, who shot Maya a look of pure hatred as they led him away. "You have no idea what you've done," he hissed at her. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is," Maya said quietly. "It's over." As the room cleared out, Maya finally allowed herself to look at Alexander. The heart monitor was showing a steady rhythm now. His color was slightly better. Dr. Patel stood next to his bed studying his charts. "Will he make it?" Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Patel looked up. "Honestly, I don't know. The damage from prolonged thallium exposure is severe. His kidneys are failing. His neurological function is compromised. But he's stable for now, and that's more than I expected when I walked in here. You saved his life tonight. You know that, right?" Maya felt her knees go weak. Sophie caught her arm, steadying her. "Come on," Sophie said gently. "Let's get you some coffee. You look like you're about to collapse." In the nurse's break room, Maya finally let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. Her hands shook as she held the coffee cup. Sophie sat next to her, not saying anything, just being there. "I thought I was crazy," Maya said finally. "When he first told me his brother was poisoning him, I thought he was just a paranoid patient. I almost didn't believe him." "But you did," Sophie pointed out. "When it mattered, you believed him. That takes courage." Over the next few hours, Maya gave her statement to the police 3 different times. She handed over the original thermos, the lab results, Alexander's USB drive. She explained everything from the beginning, the wrong room, the desperate whisper in the dark, every detail. A detective named Rodriguez seemed particularly interested in the USB drive. "Mr. Chen was smart," he said, scrolling through the files on his laptop. "He documented everything. Financial records showing his brother's embezzlement, recordings of conversations, everything we need to build a case. Combined with your lab results and testimony, this is airtight." "What happens now?" Maya asked. "Now? Daniel Chen and Dr. Harrison are under arrest for attempted murder and conspiracy. We'll be investigating the embezzlement separately. And you..." Rodriguez paused, giving Maya a long look. You should probably get a lawyer. What you did, taking that thermos without permission, that's technically theft. The DA might decide not to press charges given the circumstances, but you should be prepared. Maya nodded. She'd known there would be consequences. She'd broken rules, violated protocols, but she'd also saved a man's life, so whatever came next, she could live with it. It was almost dawn when Maya finally left the hospital. The sky was turning pink and orange on the horizon. She sat in her car for a moment, just breathing, letting the reality of the past 24 hours sink in. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hotel where she'd left her mother. Are you okay? Coming back soon? Maya typed back quickly. I'm okay, on my way. It's over, Mom, it's finally over. But as she started her car and pulled out of the parking lot, Maya couldn't shake the memory of Daniel's face as they'd led him away. The hatred in his eyes, the promise in his voice that this wasn't over. She told herself she was just tired, that she was being paranoid. Daniel was in jail. He couldn't hurt anyone anymore. But deep down, Maya knew that men like Daniel Chen didn't give up easily. And they had long memories. 3 weeks passed before Maya could bring herself to visit Alexander in the hospital again. Those 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of police interviews, news reporters camping outside her apartment, and endless meetings with lawyers. The hospital had placed her on administrative leave while they investigated her actions, which Maya understood even if it stung. The story had exploded in the media. Billionaire CEO poisoned by his own brother. Heroic nurse saves his life. The headlines were everywhere, and Maya hated every second of the attention. She'd just been trying to do the right thing. She didn't want to be on the news or have strangers recognizing her at the grocery store. But today she'd finally gotten word that Alexander was awake and asking for her. So here she was standing outside his hospital room, suddenly nervous. What do you say to someone whose life you saved? Especially when saving that life had turned your own world completely upside down? She knocked softly and pushed the door open. Alexander was sitting up in bed, looking dramatically different from the last time she'd seen him. His color was better, though he was still thin and weak-looking. He was reading something on a tablet, but he looked up when she entered, and his face broke into a genuine smile. Maya, he said, his voice still a bit hoarse but stronger than before. They told me you'd been avoiding me. I wasn't avoiding you, Maya said, stepping into the room. Things have been complicated. I heard you got suspended from work. Administrative leave, Maya corrected, sitting in the chair next to his bed. There's a difference, probably. Alexander set down his tablet. I'm sorry. You saved my life and you're being punished for it. That's not right, Maya shrugged. I broke about a dozen hospital protocols. Technically stole property from a patient's room. They have to investigate. I get it. My lawyers are working on it, Alexander said. Trust me, by the time they're done, the hospital will be begging you to come back. I don't want special treatment, Maya said quickly. I just want to go back to being a regular nurse, helping people without all this drama. Alexander studied her face for a moment. You really mean that, don't you? You don't want anything from me. No reward, no recognition, nothing. I did my job, Maya said simply. Well, technically I did someone else's job since I walked into the wrong room, but you know what I mean. For the first time since she'd met him, Alexander laughed. It was a weak laugh, but genuine. The wrong room. If you hadn't made that mistake, I'd be dead right now. My brother would have gotten away with everything. Sometimes the wrong path leads to the right place. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Finally, Maya asked the question that had been on her mind. How are you doing? I mean, really? Alexander's smile faded slightly. The doctors say I'll need months of treatment. Chelation therapy to remove the remaining heavy metals from my system. Physical therapy because the nerve damage affected my mobility. My kidneys took a hit, but they think they can recover. It's going to be a long road. But you'll make it, Maya said, and it wasn't a question. Yeah, Alexander agreed. I'll make it, because of you. What about your brother and Dr. Harrison? Alexander's expression hardened. Daniel's lawyers are trying to cut a deal, but the DA isn't budging. The evidence you collected combined with what I had documented, it's overwhelming. He'll go to prison for a long time. Dr. Harrison, too. Turns out Daniel was paying him $50,000 a month to overlook the poisoning and discourage other doctors from running certain tests. Maya shook her head in disbelief. $50,000 to help murder someone, I can't even imagine. Greed makes people do terrible things, Alexander said quietly. My brother wasn't always like this. When we were kids, he was my best friend. But somewhere along the way, money became more important than family, than human life. I'm sorry, Maya said, and she meant it. Despite everything Daniel had done, she could see the pain in Alexander's eyes when he talked about his brother. Don't be sorry for me, be proud of yourself. You're the reason I'm alive. You're the reason justice is being served. Do you know how rare that is? How many people see something wrong and choose to look the other way because getting involved is too complicated or too risky? Maya felt her cheeks warm. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, Alexander said firmly. They wouldn't have. Most people would have convinced themselves that the sick man in the hospital bed was just paranoid, that his wealthy brother couldn't possibly be trying to kill him, that it wasn't their problem. But you listened. You believed me when nobody else would. That takes something special. Before Maya could respond, there was a knock at the door. A woman in a business suit entered, carrying a leather folder. Mr. Chen, I have those documents you requested, she said, then noticed Maya. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had a visitor. I can come back. No, stay, Alexander said. This involves Maya too. He turned to Maya. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few weeks about what matters, about what I want to do with my second chance at life. And I want to create something good out of all this nightmare. He took the folder from the woman and pulled out some papers. I'm establishing a foundation. The Maya Chen Foundation for Medical Advocacy and Patient Safety. Its mission is to protect whistleblowers in healthcare, to investigate suspicious patient deaths, and to ensure that people like you who stand up for what's right are protected, not punished. Maya stared at him. You're naming it after me? Is that okay? I should have asked first, but I wanted it to be a surprise. I don't know what to say. Alexander smiled. You don't have to say anything. But I do have a question. I want you to be the director of the foundation. You'd have full authority to investigate any concerns, work with hospitals to improve protocols, train staff on recognizing signs of patient abuse or neglect. You'd be helping people on a scale that goes beyond one patient at a time. Maya felt overwhelmed. Alexander, I'm a nurse. I don't know anything about running a foundation. You'd have a full staff to help with the administrative stuff, but I need someone who understands what it's like to be on the front lines, someone who actually cares about patients more than politics or money. That's you. Can I think about it? Maya asked. Of course. Take all the time you need. A week later, Maya met Alexander at a small cafe across the street from the hospital. It was the same cafe where she used to grab coffee during her breaks, back when her biggest worry was getting through a double shift without falling asleep. I've made my decision, she said, sitting down across from him. He looked stronger now, more like the CEO from the photos she'd seen online, though there was a warmth in his eyes that hadn't been there in those professional pictures. And? Alexander asked, though his nervous expression suggested he already knew she might say no. I'll do it, Maya said, but on one condition. I don't give up nursing completely. I want to keep working at least one shift a week on the floor, because that's where I can make a real difference, one patient at a time. That's who I am. Alexander's face broke into a huge smile. Deal. Though I think you're underestimating how much difference you can make in your new role. Maybe, Maya admitted. But I became a nurse because I wanted to help people who couldn't help themselves. I'm not going to lose sight of that just because the job title changed. Over the next few months, Maya learned that Alexander had been right. Through the foundation, she helped implement new protocols in hospitals across the state for identifying and reporting patient abuse. She trained thousands of healthcare workers on recognizing signs of poisoning and other suspicious symptoms. She helped 3 other nurses who'd reported concerns about patient safety and faced retaliation from their employers. But she never gave up her weekly shift at St. Catherine's. Every Tuesday night, she was back on the floor, checking vitals, holding hands, listening to patients who just needed someone to hear them. 6 months after that fateful night when she'd walked into the wrong room, Maya was finishing up her Tuesday shift when Alexander showed up in the hallway. He was fully recovered now, back to running his company, though he'd made a lot of changes, to Chen Pharmaceuticals, including establishing an ethics board and installing safeguards against the kind of fraud his brother had committed. "Hey," he said, leaning against the nurse's station. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd see if you wanted to grab some coffee." Maya smiled, pulling off her scrubs jacket. "In the neighborhood? Your office is downtown." "Okay, fine. I specifically drove here to ask you to coffee." "Is that so terrible?" "Not terrible at all," Maya said. "Just give me 5 minutes to change." As they walked to the cafe together, Maya thought about how much her life had changed from one simple mistake. Walking into the wrong room had led her down a path she never could have imagined. She'd faced danger, risked her career, been threatened and bribed and tested in ways she'd never expected. But she'd also discovered something important about herself. When it mattered most, when someone needed help and everyone else had looked away, she'd found the courage to do the right thing, not because she wanted recognition or reward, but because it was simply the right thing to do. And sometimes, Maya thought, as Alexander held the cafe door open for her with a smile that suggested this might become a regular thing, sometimes doing the right thing leads you exactly where you're supposed to be, even if you have to take the wrong turn to get there.